Nobody in Galveston knew they were living through their final ordinary morning. Shopkeepers opened their doors, children walked to school along the beach, and the Gulf of Mexico looked, if anything, unusually calm. By the next evening, that calm would be gone, along with more than 6,000 lives, and the city would be remembered forever for what happened next. The deadliest natural disaster in American history, a storm that arrived on September 8, 1900, and left the island of Galveston, Texas almost unrecognizable. What makes this story so haunting isn't just the scale of the destruction. It's how much of it might have been avoided, and how close the warnings came to being heard before it was too late. In 1900, Galveston was one of the wealthiest, most modern cities in Texas, a booming port sometimes called the Wall Street of the South. Grand Victorian homes lined its streets, and the island itself sat barely 8 feet above sea level, flat and exposed, with nothing between its neighborhoods and the open Gulf. That vulnerability mattered little to the people who lived there because hurricanes, while known, were not yet understood the way they are today. There were no satellites circling overhead, no radar systems tracking rotation and pressure, only ship captains, barometers, and a stubborn confidence that Galveston had weathered storms before and would weather this one too. The man who came closest to sounding the alarm was Isaac Cline, the chief meteorologist of the U.S. Weather Bureau's Galveston station. Days before the storm, Cline noticed something unsettling. A heavy swell rolling in from the southeast, unconnected to any local wind pattern, a telltale sign of a distant hurricane churning somewhere out in the Gulf. He raised flags of warning and wrote urgently about his concerns, but the technology and institutional caution of the era worked against him. The National Weather Bureau in Washington, skeptical of overreacting and wary of causing panic, downplayed the threat. Cline believed, based on the science of his time, that a storm of catastrophic strength could never seriously harm Galveston. He would soon watch that belief collapse in front of him. By the morning of September 8th, the signs had become impossible to dismiss. The surf grew wild, the sky darkened into a strange greenish hue, and water began creeping into the streets long before anyone expected a storm to make landfall. Still, with no formal evacuation order and limited ways to leave a low-lying island connected to the mainland by only a handful of bridges and a single rail causeway, most residents simply waited it out, the way they always had. Some even walked down to the beach to watch the waves, unaware they were witnessing the leading edge of a monster. By afternoon, the hurricane's true fury arrived. Sustained winds tore through the city at well over 100 miles per hour, with gusts believed to have exceeded 130. But wind alone did not doom Galveston. It was the storm's surge, a wall of seawater pushed ashore by the hurricane's force, that turned the island into a drowning trap. Water rose not gradually, but in a terrifying, relentless surge that eventually submerged the entire city under several feet of ocean, cutting off any hope of escape. Homes that had stood for decades were lifted from their foundations and smashed into neighboring buildings, creating a churning wall of debris that moved through the streets like a battering ram, crushing everything and everyone in its path. Survivors later described scenes almost too horrific to comprehend. Families clinging to rooftops as their homes disintegrated beneath them, parents tying their children to floating debris in desperate hope that at least someone might survive until morning, and entire blocks vanishing into the churning black water within minutes. The storm raged through the night, and when the sun finally rose on September 9th, it revealed a landscape almost impossible to process. An estimated 1/3 of the city had been physically wiped from the map. Debris fields stretched for miles, some piled 3 stories high, tangled with wreckage, furniture, and the bodies of the dead. Rescue workers described the wreckage line as a wall stretching across the island, a grim boundary marking exactly how far the sea had reached in its assault on the city. The death toll remains staggering even by modern standards. Estimates range from 6,000 to as many as 12,000 people killed in a single night, making it, to this day, the deadliest natural disaster the United States has ever recorded. Entire families were erased in hours. Survivors faced the horrifying task of identifying loved ones among the wreckage, while officials, overwhelmed by the sheer number of dead and fearing disease, resorted to mass burials at sea and later, mass cremations on the very streets where the victims had lived. For weeks, the smell of smoke hung over Galveston as funeral pyres burned around the clock. Yet what followed the tragedy revealed something equally extraordinary: the refusal of Galveston's people to abandon their home. Rather than retreat from the Gulf, city leaders and engineers made a decision so audacious it still amazes people today. They decided to raise the entire city. Using massive dredging operations, workers pumped sand beneath thousands of existing buildings, lifting homes, churches, and businesses on jacks while the ground beneath them was built up by as much as 17 feet in some areas. Entire structures, sometimes weighing hundreds of tons, were elevated inch by inch without being torn down, an engineering feat almost unheard of at the time. Alongside this effort, the city constructed a massive concrete seawall, over 3 miles long and 17 feet high, designed specifically to break the force of future storm surges before they could reach the city again. That seawall would be tested. In the decades since, Galveston has weathered numerous hurricanes, some nearly as powerful as the one in 1900, yet none have inflicted anything close to the same devastation, a direct testament to the lessons paid for in blood over a century ago. Today, visitors can walk along that same seawall, watch the waves break harmlessly against its concrete face, and stand in a city that quite literally rebuilt itself, foot by foot, atop its own tragedy. The Galveston Hurricane of 1900 remains a sobering reminder that nature's power can outpace even our most confident assumptions, and that warnings, however uncertain, deserve to be heeded rather than dismissed. But it also stands as proof of something else, that even after losing everything, a community can choose not just to rebuild, but to rise, literally, above the very disaster that tried to erase it.